at that!
Welcome to the sun-drenched tropical paradise of Isle Delfino. We're so pleased to welcome you to our beautiful home. Come enjoy a natural wonderland to which we've added the world's finest resort facilities, a spectacular amusement park, and succulent seafood. All this and more await you on Isle Delfino. Come relax and let us refresh your body and spirit.
Greetings everybody, it is I am the one and only Maxi here, and I am back for yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for that massive delay after the events of the very end of Super Mario 64 game portion of the Super Mario 3D All-Stars game. Clearly because of how the fact that I just need able to take a break, and here we are now on to the 1st of June of 2022, so this means that, well, we can able to tackle for the next game, which, appropriately enough, I'm actually going to be doing during in summer. So in this case though, yeah, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Nintendo Switch. So remember last time, for about 5 months ago, that is the fact that we've already 100% everything in terms of Super Mario 64, and we managed to beat Bowser for the 3rd time on that game. So today, we're going to be now hit on to the second game on this entire compilation, and this time we're going to be hit on to Super Mario Sunshine. So, before we get into more details about that though, as you can see on this option selection, we now only have 2 options to begin with. So we have Rumble turned on and off, and subtitles on and off. So the only thing it's missing though is the language support. I'm guessing it's because the Switch has already got the language support system in the actual system menu and stuff like that. And I don't think there's any sound settings this time around though, because as far as you already know, there wasn't any Dolby Surround Pro Logic 2 logo anymore, unlike the forms of how it does on the original version of the game back on the Nintendo GameCube. So anyway, so let's get into file C right here, which in this case this is the file we have not used on this version of the game, because I think Sonic did this Let's Play back in 2020, and he selected the B file. So yeah, here we are on to the next file on file C, but this time on the gorgeous 1080p, so we'll discuss on that in a moment. So yeah, let's get started with Super Mario Sunshine on the Super Mario 3D All-Stars version.
What happened? What's this icky paint-like goop? It's moving!
Now, boys, don't touch that stuff.
Excuse me, but... Huh?
I am most concerned with the well-being of the princess in this dreadful heat. Master Mario, if you would, cross over to that shore and find some assistance.
So yeah, let's get started with the actual game itself, and once again we ended up on the forms of Delfino airstrip right here, because obviously the actual plane is onto a complete stop because of the forms of that mysterious goop. If you ever watched our GameCube version of this Let's Play. Now, speaking of the massive difference between the original release of the game on the GameCube compared to the forms of the Switch version from the likes of Super Mario 3D All-Stars, everything else in the visuals department looks much nicer now. Especially noticeable that, in addition, this is on 1080p, but also, get this, it now has widescreen. So yeah, that's actually pretty amazing too. So anyways, I'll get into more details about this in a second, because we meet up with Flood here.
Power up complete. Thank you for purchasing this item from Gad Science Incorporated. Preparing to register customer information. Scanning and classifying subject data. Subject identified as Mario, resident of the Mushroom Kingdom. Data storage complete. I am Flood, a flash liquidizer ultra dowsing device. I hope to be of assistance. Proceeding with user instruction. Use the button to shoot water from my tank. If you press the button, you can stop and shoot. You can then use the stick to aim in any direction. Press the X button to switch to the hover nozzle. You can then press the button to hover in the air for a short time. If this tank is empty, no water can be sprayed. To refill tank, enter a body of water and press the button. Instructions complete. Proceed.
So yeah, there was a bit of a difference between the forms of the GameCube version and the likes of the Switch version, is that, as you probably already noticed from that particular how to play montage with using Flood and stuff like that. Normally, on the forms of the GameCube original release, that Flood actually says that specific button you have to press, whilst in this particular version this time around though, it cuts off the line, and that way, because of how the fact that, for some reason or another, they decided, like, for instance, on the GameCube version, whenever you're trying to use Flood, basically though, that he says, like, use the R button in the original version of the game. However though, on the Switch version this time around though, it cuts that line off and just say, use the button and stuff like that, which I have no idea why they come up with this change. Mind you, I think this is mainly because of how the fact you do now have two alternative ways to able to use Flood this time. You can either use the R button or the ZR buttons. So I believe what the ZR can do is the fact that you can able to actually use Flood in any sort of like movements in your any direction. And then if you try to press the R button, then you can able to stop and spray. So, yeah, I guess it's like a kind of the replacement from the likes of the analog, kind of like, GameCube controller for the R buttons and stuff like that. So, anyways, we cleaned that Piantu up, and of course that he says, like, this whole thing is your fault and stuff like that. Which, we already know about this because, well, as I mentioned this before, is the fact that, well, we basically did originally done this game back in 2020, but anyways, we got ourselves the first Shine Sprite.
Nice work, Mario.
Quite an unusual device. Is it some sort of pump?
I am Flood. Glad to meet you. Hey, someone's coming.
Court is now in session.
As you are no doubt aware, someone has been senselessly defacing fair Isle Delfino using some paint-like substance. The accused is charged with polluting our beautiful home, and yes, endangering our very way of life. Indeed, how can one not be aware of what is going on? Though it is daytime in Delfino Plaza, our poor residents tremble beneath a veil of darkness. Expert Shine scholars have determined that this darkness has arisen because all of our guardians, the Shine Sprites, have vanished from their gathering spot at the Shine Gate. The reason? It's quite obvious. This horrible graffiti is to blame. Behold this sketch of the perpetrator based on eyewitness descriptions. The truth is obvious. The guilty party sits among us. It is none other than Mario.
Objection!
Overruled. I judge the defendant guilty as charged. I hereby order the defendant to clean this entire island. Until Isle Delfino is completely free of his vile handiwork, Mario shall not be allowed to leave. Court adjourned.
This appears to be quite a predicament, Mario. Data analysis verifies that the island's inhabitants are indeed troubled by pollution, but the pollution itself is not the main problem. Mario, you witnessed this object at the airstrip, correct? It is a shine sprite. Shine sprites are the source of power on Isle Delfino. They used to gather in great numbers at the Shine Gate, but the graffiti incident has polluted the island and most of the shine sprites have fled. There is no longer any power to support the peaceful lifestyle of the islanders. It is most pitiable. The only way to ensure the return of the shine sprites is to keep the island from becoming any dirtier. The perpetrator is likely at work even as we speak. And you, Mario, are being treated as a criminal. Tomorrow we must do our best to resolve this situation.
So yeah, that was pretty much as far as you might already know about what the shine sprites can do. The more you collected them, then it restores the actual brightness to the sunshine, so...
Go straight that way. You can't miss the mesh tower. Your first job's to get rid of all that ugliness. And remember, we'll be watching you, pal. We'll know if you start slacking off.
Also, something's worth mentioning though is the fact that, remember how the fact that when Sonic has already mentioned about this, ever since and during the course of, Sonic Colors Ultimate Let's Play? Yes, unfortunately though, the cutscenes doesn't exactly, go remade. It's like the exact same quality as the forms of how it does on the original GameCube version release. Although, there might be some little differences here and there, although we're probably not going to get into more details about that in any moment's notice, but as you can see, we ended up on the forms of the main hub world of the game, which is of course Delfino Plaza, which is the most recognizable hub world in the entire game. Especially noticeable they managed able to reuse that particular environment from the likes of certain spin-off games, ranging from Mario Power Tennis and Fortune Street, and also some other titles here and there as well, which I honestly can't think of the top of my head, because I know for the fact it has been, again, since 5 months ago since I actually last touched upon, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, because obviously I managed to able to complete Kirby and the Forgotten Land recently for the Switch, and also some other Switch titles here and there as well. So yeah, forgive me if I managed able to botch it all that stuff though. Now here's the thing about the forms of this particular Let's Play, I've decided able to do something completely different this time. Now remember the fact that back in 2020, aka the worst year ever made, we normally attempt to able to actually go through specific secret shine sprites on specific locations during the course of the Delfino Plaza. However though, I'm gonna do the exact same thing from the likes of in Super Mario 64 game portion. That is the fact that we need to able to go through one of those worlds and collect as many of those shine sprites as possible, but either way though, I want able to point out for that specific change.
Princess, look! On the statue's head!
And sure enough, we were able to actually come across into the doppelganger of Mario, or to be more specifically, this game usually calls it Shadow Mario, so... And of course, Princess Peach is being kidnapped again, so we must able to actually once again spray Shadow Mario quite a few times, and then after we're done with all that stuff though, yeah, you probably expect it by this point, especially noticeable if you haven't played the GameCube version before, except the fact that we now need to rely on Nintendo Switch controllers. So, But you can either play it on the Switch Pro controller or the Joy-Con controllers, if that's your pleasure to able to actually use those kinds of controllers. But either way though, I'm still using the Switch Pro controller because it's so comfortable to hold in my opinion. And I believe there's also the third alternative controller you can able to use, well aside from handheld mode. Actually, before I get to more that in a second, because let's spray Toadsworth here to see what he's trying to say. Let's do that again. Go on. Oh, I love that. So adorable. Especially noticeable how the fact that, wow, I have no idea they haven't sort of able to actually reuse that clip from the likes of Mario Party 7. But anyway, let's just go ahead and spray that little M portal thing here, which pretty much leads us to, well, what else? The first world in the game, Bianco Hills. And the first episode we have is Road to the Big Windmill. So, of course, structurally speaking, it feels exactly like, you know, Super Mario 64, that basically you go around and explore some portions of certain worlds during the sandbox kind of stuff, except now that everything is bright and colorful, and plus you're now able to actually rely on FLUDD to able to actually get onto certain situations, like, you know, much like any forms of in the original GameCube version of the game, that basically though is the fact that you do have an option to able to switch between normal FLUDD, which basically just sprays in the actual thing, and then if you press the X button, as you can see on screen, that basically you can able to switch between the hover nozzle and stuff like that. Although eventually, whenever we continue our progressioning through the game, then we're able to actually get access to other FLUDD modes throughout the game. Like, for instance, there will be the rocket nozzle and a turbo nozzle later on, so yeah, you probably expect it by this point. So, but yeah, like I mentioned this before, that we already done this Super Mario Sunshine Let's Play back in new forms of in a miserable year in 2020, and because of that though, the quality itself looks alright, certainly a lot better than the forms of how it does it back in 2014, for what I've remembered, and hopefully though, we're able to actually do the exact same condition as the forms of last time, so basically once again we'll aim for 100% run through, which means all of the shine sprites needs to be collected, and also on top of it all off, get the 100 coin shine sprites in every single world, and not to mention those godforsaken blue coins. Yeah. A lot of multitasking right there, especially noticeable there might be some infamous missions or infamous stages that we will come across into eventually in the future. So, episode 2, down with PD Piranha. And one good thing about this version in particular is the fact that we no need to worry about the forms of likely. Remember if some people managed able to play Super Mario Sunshine loads of times, especially notable for speedrun communities out there, that if your disc is about to get scratched heavenly, well, if you do somehow manage to get the disc scratched, this means about the fact that you come across into the message saying the disc could not be read and stuff like that. Luckily, on the Switch version though, assuming if you're able to actually get the physical version of the game, although sadly you can't get the game digitally anymore, mainly because of the forms of that stupid limited time only kind of stuff, which I absolutely have no idea why they just seem to able to refuse to release the game fully digitally, well, for a number amount of time or something like that, but either way though. So, yeah, with the forms of this particular version of Super Mario Sunshine, the loading times has been reduced. So in this case, the loading times are much faster to load, so, which I do appreciate about that, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, at least on the good side for this though, is the fact that while this is not on the Wii U, which I guess is a good thing, because the Wii U has been flopped, so as a result though, that, yeah, oh, speaking of that though, is the fact that, I just realized something, is the fact that, since we are in June right now, in this case the month of E3, we're not exactly sure what the date's supposed to be, but I'm pretty sure I'll let, some Toy Sales can able to mention more about it until whenever we get to another Let's Play we can able to do, especially noticeable when it gets to likely tomorrow and stuff like that, because between Super Mario Sunshine and the next Let's Play coming up, that both are going to be almost entirely related to summer related or something like that. Although mind you, is the fact that I've almost pretty much finishing up with Mario Party 8 first before I'm able to actually do another one, but hopefully we're able to stay tuned for that. So, anyways, let's go on to that windmill, and we can see Petey Piranha on top of the windmill, so yeah, let's meet up with him again. So yeah, you see what I mean when it comes to certain cutscenes like this one, that basically it just zooms in and then basically just trying to able to fit the whole picture quality and stuff like that. So yeah, that might be something worth mentioning for that sake of time. So at least on the upside it is too, is the fact that I'm glad this is not on the 3DS, because either way though, because imagine if that was on the 3DS, I might be alright if I can play the game on the go, but imagine about the fact that without the C-Stick, or in some cases the Pad Pro accessory, then it'll make this a little bit more of an inferior version of Super Mario Sunshine, but thankfully that doesn't seem the case, because, well, obviously this is on the Switch, so I guess I'm very appreciative about that, despite the fact that this is not on HD quality. Well, it's still in HD quality, but unfortunately though, it doesn't seem to able to improve upon the quality of life improvements for some players out there. To be more specifically, the most infamous one of them all though, it was the forms of one of those Delfino Plaza missions. Well, to be more specifically, one of those secret courses that we'll point it out whenever we get into it though, because again, I'm gonna do something completely different with this whole entire playthrough this time around. I was gonna able to try to go through you know, world to world first and then save it up for later for Delfino Plaza stuff, but ultimately speaking though, I just cannot help it about the fact that we can able to grab several collectibles before on one hand. So anyway, so we just have to fill up Petey Piranha's mouth, and then basically though with water, and then when his stomach fills up with water, you're just able to ground pound it at the stomach weak spot point 3 times. So yeah, pretty easy boss fight if you get the hang of it though, especially noticeable if you ever played, you know, the GameCube version before, then you feel right at home. So, and of course we come across into another gooby stuff, but this time in black, so I think this will pretty much lead us to the next world, but I'm not gonna go there just yet though, because I'm gonna have to do the exact same thing as when in Super Mario 64, though I will try my best if I was gonna grab as many of those shine sprites as I could. So, Episode 3, The Hillside Cave Secret. So, yeah, this will be surprising to know. So, anywho, and I guess that's as far as I can honestly try to say in terms of the forms of the Switch version of Super Mario Sunshine as a whole. I mean, usually relatively speaking, I will say this is more of a definitive version of Super Mario Sunshine in my opinion, although despite the fact that it does have some questionable choices, to be more specifically with the forms of, well, it doesn't seem to able to improve the quality of life improvements sometimes, especially noticeable because of how the fact that, well, they just really wish if they were able to add it in the blue coin tracker mark on the map, so that way you can able to see whereabouts is it. So yeah, I've no idea why they never seemed able to improve that on the Switch version, mind you, because this is still an emulation port and stuff like that, so I'm perfectly fine with that, because either way though, that's well, like I said, this game is now in 1080p, and also say applies to the fact that it now has widescreen, which I honestly appreciate about that. Especially noticeable, you can now able to actually see the far left and the far right portion of the screen itself. Although the only thing it doesn't improve at all is the frames per second thing. Like, I was expecting if this will actually be running on 60 frames per second, which that would be amazing. But for some reason, they still locked it onto the forms of, well, 30 FPS, which it does feel out of place though, but honestly I don't mind about it too much, so, but that's just me. And of course, since if you have a first time experiencing those secret courses, that yes, will be completely floodless the whole way through. Although, whenever we get into the red coin challenges though, then we can pretty much expect it to able to actually have flood with us to make things a little bit more easier and comfortable, especially noticeable if the red coin challenge comes into play. Oh god, that was the first death! Oh. Ah, dang it, I wasn't paying attention. In fact, I couldn't use the ground pound to begin with, though, but I was just a bit reckless. So, anywho, though, also I just found out something, is the fact that, relatively speaking, it has been about 10 years ago since when E3 2012 comes into play, especially noticeable after the reveals of multitude of things, especially noticeable specifically when it has like, oh my god, why? I am getting so annoyed with Bianca 3. I have no idea why I bring that up. But basically, I can do this forever if I keep failing because of that extra life. That's basically to get extra lives on certain secret courses. It's the fact that you have to ground pound that particular nail, and basically that's all you have to get. Okay, third time in a row, I think anyway. But seriously, this particular section just feels a bit, I don't know, kind of finicky to me. So it's just mainly because of how the fact that, well, it can be imprecise sometimes when it comes to likely trying to able to get a good precisioning control and stuff like that. So, although the only missing factor about this is the fact that there is no octagonal control shape when it comes to likely just going straight and stuff like that on certain Switch controllers like Joy-Con controllers as well as the Pro controller and stuff like that. Although, much like in Super Mario 64 though, on this entire compilation, it also has a patch that, except this time around though, they now feature the GameCube controller can now be able to be used in one game in particular, and that is Super Mario Sunshine. So, at least that's that, I suppose. So even then, note that if you're familiar with that controller, if you ever played the original version of the game before on one hand, then you might have felt right at home when it comes to using that controller to begin with, so... And I'm pretty sure that Super Mario Galaxy is the only exception, because Joy-Cons are acted out very similar to the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck, so I guess that's pretty obvious. Alright, so here, let's hit on to episode 4, and that is Red Coins of Windmill Village. So, relatively speaking, I think Bianco Hills is overall a really easy world to complete, although there's one mission in particular that might turn people off, and that is the forms of episode 6. Now, speaking of that though, and that is the fact that I do found out that back in the forms of it when the actual compilation was first released, back in during the course of September 2020, in this case the worst year ever made, or worst year I've ever experienced. But basically though, they do have a bit of a questionable errors for the sake of the forms of, let's just say specifically in this game in particular, when it comes to emulation errors. Like for example, there is that one moment where if you're trying to do likely a the racing segment when you're trying to able to race against with El Partizimo. Basically though, there is that weird sound if you manage to able to come across into that sound whenever you're able to actually first experience in the game. Or specifically when you first experienced this particular compilation to begin with back in your forms of 2 years ago. And that, you probably already know what I'm talking about. But thankfully it's been fixed by the forms of certain patch. So, and speaking of those other patches worth noting for, that basically, as I said before, this is obviously like an emulation port to the normal GameCube release of Super Mario Sunshine. So there's also another instance about the fact that there's actually that weird graphical oddity when it comes to likely, well, let's just say if we get into episode 6, likely until at some point on Friday, on the 3rd of June. So as a result though, that you probably already know what I'm talking about. So anyway, let's just go ahead and grab some red coins from the entire village itself, and of course, every once in a while, I'll just try to find as many of those blue coins as I possibly could, and yet again, there are a grand total of 240 of those blue coins, so nothing new here, so it basically has the exact same amount as the forms of how it does it from the previous version, which is of course the GameCube original release, which that reminds me of something. Super Mario Sunshine as the game itself is going to be 20 years old this year, so yeah, I can't believe time actually flies all of a sudden. Along with the forms of Lilo and Stitch, the Disney animated classic, which I do enjoy, and Treasure Planet, well, it was okay for me, but it's not my cup of tea, at least in my opinion. Despite the box office as being bombed, just like it informs of how it does it on Atlantis The Lost Empire. So it feels like this is one of those emphasis on the fact that the 2D animation for Disney films every now and then gets a lot of box office bombed every now and then, which is kind of sucks honestly, because certain films, mainly the forms of Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King especially, have the best box office performance back in those years, ranging from 1991 to 1994, and also 1992 as well for the sake of Aladdin's case. So, but either way though, it's kind of a shame that 2D animation doesn't seem able to become popular anymore, which is kind of a shame, but I do know for the fact that because the 3D animation is now taking over and stuff like that for its popularity, so I guess that makes it pretty much sense to me though, so. Anyway, so we've managed to grab all of the 8 red coins, and just like before, in the likes of Super Mario 64, basically if you grab all those 8 red coins, then the Shine Sprite will appear. So, yeah, to be expected by this point. So, it looks like so far that we've only got about, actually gotta think about it, we actually got about, you know, 11 or 12, as you probably already know from that blue coin I just already, collected. Yeah, some of blue coins can be hidden for certain areas and also in certain of those graffiti writings for the sake of thanks to the forms of Shadow Mario that he did manage to able to actually just display or to send a lot of those M graffitis everywhere. So I guess that makes it super obvious. So anyways though, and also this is the month of the E3, as I said, so at least I can't wait to see how that's going to turn out. Although unfortunately though, I can't seem to be able to mention about this anytime soon until whenever we get into later days, for the sake of the forms of, let's just say, more uploading schedules on this, along with another Let's Play we can do for its summer related thing. So yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning, and I think there's a blue coin somewhere over there, but of course the clouds doesn't show up until whenever we get into episode 8, in this case the 8th mission for the sake of Bianco Hills. So yeah, I don't think there's any blue coins to be found around here, so we're just gonna have to wait for that in a later time. So anyways, let's go ahead and oh, can I make it? Yes I do. Nice. Seriously, I still really love the actual the Huffle nozzle a lot, and anywho though, let's go ahead and grab that Shine Sprite, and we're now up to 5 Shine Sprites, and so far we've got 12 blue coins. So yeah, I guess that's very obvious. And by the way, those blue coins are currency, by the way, if you're able to actually grab or obtain rather some more Shine Sprites, if you those of you already know what I mean. So anyway, I guess suffice to say is the fact that we'll go ahead and end things off here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Super Mario 3D All-Stars in the Super Mario Sunshine game. And that is the fact that we'll continue things on in Bianco Hills. So I'll see you guys on Friday. Later, fellas.